So it's not for kids.
GEDAGADIGADAGO.
Been listening to a lot of Cotton Eye Joe lately.
I thought you were going to join in with me. You cowered out. We've been singing it before we hit record, and then now you're just leaving me to dry here in this dead wasteland.
I just thought that'd be funnier. I've already outed myself as a brony. Is there like really any need for me to like
embarrass
lower
yourself?
myself further?
I don't know. I feel like bronies are celebrated now.
Really?
It's like cool to be a brony.
I'm not sure I'm seeing that. I guess I need to get on the side of the internet that you're on.
I did talk to a friend from high school. They were like, bronies, great. Furries, cool. I cannot get down with adult babies. That's where they drew the line.
Oh, okay.
Such a weird line to draw.
Well, the funny thing about adult babies or whatever is going on with that, which look, anyone out there listening, if you're an adult baby, I'm not trying to,
we're not trying to yuck your yum,
as they say. Yeah.
We're not trying to goo your ga.
I straight up know like nothing about it, so I'm talking out my total ass more than normal here. But I'm like, I don't think they have conventions specifically for that.
Not yet.
Okay, it's coming. Diaper convention sponsored by Shelf Stable. What were we gonna say?
Their thesis on the adult baby thing and why they draw the line is because you can be a furry or a brony and it has little impact on the people around you. But their claim, not mine, is there's inherently a need for someone to support you when you're an adult baby. I think the way it works is you have like a sort of caretaker or mommy or daddy. I don't know.
So does this go beyond like it's not a diaper fetish thing. It's like you are actually taken care of as a baby.
Allegedly, there are many people in the adult baby community that
You're reading off Wikipedia.
No.
Okay.
That do not partake in any sort of like sexually related activity. Like they are purely in it for the baby part.
I can see why people are entering this state of mind, given the situation we live in. All I'm gonna say is like, couldn't be me, but I see how you're getting to that point.
It'll be fun to have these podcasts as kind of a like time capsule, just showing the Animorphs like progression of Tom becoming a full adult baby. Mm-hmm. This is the first part. Like I could see the appeal, and then like, next episode, like, so I did a little bit more research.
Next week, I'm just like, "What's up, Kenny? Goo 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 goo."
It just becomes like babbling.
It's funny because like I guess I don't have to apologize to the adult baby community because from the sounds of it, their caretakers would not be putting on our explicit rated podcast for their child, right? Like it's not like this. I'm going on the Yodo for them at night.
Yeah.
Sleep easy.
Paraphilic infantilism, also known as adult baby,
now you're reading off Wikipedia.
For short,
okay,
is a form of age play that involves role-playing a regression of infant-like state. Like other forms of adult play, may be expressed as a non-sexual fetish, a kink, or simply as a comforting platonic activity.
So this is like that 21 Pilots song, right? Where he's like... What's that song? I can't remember how it goes. Like
Wish
it's like
you could turn back time.
Yeah, exactly.
To the good old days.
Yeah, exactly.
When I was in diapers and I used to goo goo gaga.
Precisely.
Welcome to Shelf Stable. I don't even know what we say anymore. Welcome to Shelf Stable, a podcast celebrating board games that have stood the test of time. I'm your host, Kenny Katayama.
That's right. We don't just talk about adult babies on this podcast. I'm your other host, Tom Bowers. Today, our featured topic is board games that should get a reprint.
I had a listener reach out to me about my statements regarding math and games last episode.
Yeah, you had a hot take.
Yeah, I was pretty bold in saying you basically can't learn math from playing games, so don't even try. And they called me out. They were like, hey, I actually work for an educational business that tries to integrate, mathematics in gameplay for children. And we talked through it. We talked about the benefits. And I would like to retract my previous statement and make a new one. I still stand by that math is not going to improve for like the average adult going about just doing very like basic arithmetic, calculating scores at the end of a game, for example. However, I definitely see the benefit when it comes to children. And I can even see games as a more accessible way of understanding a lot of these concepts, especially when it comes to something like probability. We also happen to have another school teacher in our game group, and they have talked about how they use like Machikoro for probability and things like that. When it comes to teaching the core concepts of arithmetic and things like that, and even probability, I do think that games can be really beneficial because they make those things fun and they make them tangible. Thank you for calling me out. I totally agree. I think as far as education for children or for people who are learning mathematics concepts for the first time, I think it's great and definitely beneficial.
And that's why we love our fans. They'll call out Kenny on his bullshit and none of mine. I'm glad that happened.
They've never called you out on your bullshit. Never.
But anyway, enough of that bullshit. Let's talk about some of the games we've been playing recently. Kenny, what's one of the games you've been playing?
I got to play Quacks from 2018.
Don't you mean Quacks of Quedlinburg?
Well, now it's both. The old versions say Quacks of Quedlinburg on the box, and now there's a new version from CMYK coming out called Quacks. This is Wolfgang Warsch, publisher Schmidt Spiele for our version.
One of the most like German collection of words you've ever had to say. The art of the new version, I like the clay. Very evocative of many childhood TV series and such.
Yeah, it feels a little gumball for some reason, even though that wasn't 3D. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Quacks of Quellenberg. You are a quack... I was going to say musician. You're a quack medicine peddler in the medieval times. You're like, drink my potion. It'll heal all your heart sickness or whatever. And then you put a bunch of random garbage in your boiling pot and hope that it actually scores you points. The way this is represented mechanically is it's a bag building game. So you're going to buy these ingredients, mix them up in a bag, and one by one pull them out. Based on how far along you can get points-wise, you can buy more ingredients that you put into your bag. The catch is it's also a push-your-luck game. So if you pull out too many pieces that have the white cherry bombs on them, your cauldron bursts and bubbles and basically ruins your concoction. And at that point, you don't score any points. You only can buy for that particular round. I mean, it's a game.
Wow.
We played it because Taylor in our group, she's on a quest to try and play the top 100. And it was one of the ones that she hadn't played. Playing it again just reminded me of how little there actually is to do in this game. That being said, I still enjoy it as an activity.
This is Kenny's rolling, right?
Yeah, I would rather play it than a lot of the other games that I consider to have like not a lot of decisions. I don't know, there's something really fun about the actual like pulling out of a bag, adding things to the bag, but there's not a lot to do in this game.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of on rails. You're kind of just doing your thing. And you don't even know if the thing is the right thing to do, but you're just doing it. And then at the end, you're just like, oh, we did the thing. But I like it for a game where you can like talk while you're playing. If you're playing it for the inherent value of the game, that's where I kind of like lose it. Am I missing something? Is there more to this game than I give it credit for? Because it kind of just feels like you just put stuff in a bag and you hope you get it. And there's some mitigation, but it's very small.
I mean, honestly, after playing it again, I'm like, what the fuck am I missing? Because like this is in the top 100 on Board Game Geek, which it's not so much that it like wouldn't necessarily deserve to be, but it's just very bizarre to me that it is ranked so highly when there's kind of like a lot of things working against it from like, you know, your typical Board Game Geek top 100 game. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're not building any tableaus. You're not like doing any tax sheets. There's no fucking like alternate player powers. There's no shiny like minifigures. Like there's like almost fucking nothing going for this. And in all those ways, this game is like really good because it's very simple, it's straightforward, it's an incredible family game. I think it either won or was nominated for Kennerspiel.
I think so, yeah.
So maybe that is what has kept it so high ranked. It is a Kennerspiel winner as far as I can tell. Other than it being like a very Kennerspiel game, I'm like, it's kind of just whatever. Like, I don't know. What does it feel like to play this game? It feels pretty silly. It feels like pulling a lottery handle a little bit. And then you get to cash out. And I guess like the game cycle of like semi-random reward, and then you get to brew your bag every turn with your winnings. I think it's just fun for that. And I think that must be what is driving this. But like, if you really take a step back from it and you're like, what am I getting out of this? It's mostly just like a chance to sit around the table with your friends. And there's not much more driving it for me.
I think you and I feel very similarly. It's an activity. It's not an offensive game, but we were both a little turned off by the fact that this is rated so highly, both critically and like in terms of the BGG ranking.
I don't even know if I'm mad. I'm just mostly confused. I'm like, how's this number 70 and like Survive is like nowhere to be seen?
There's just so many good push your luck games that aren't in the top 100 that I feel like are similar but better. I mean, just like Raw, for example. Like No Thanks, Can't Stop. I mean, many of the games that we've talked about with the whole I'm not scared thing, they're not even close to the top 100, but they're like so much more fulfilling in my opinion. But
yeah, I think the thing that's missing from this that a lot of those other ones have is like there's not really that much to make you feel clever, and then whatever like levers they might have had to like make the decisions feel like impactful or clever, that I feel like they even undermined a little bit with like the random event deck and stuff like that, where it'll just like reward players for basically like being behind, which is, I don't know, I get it from a design perspective. It keeps everyone in the game and feeling like they're having fun and no one's taking it seriously. But at the same time, it's like, if you want to take a game seriously, this is not the one you should be playing, it seems.
I think this game could have really benefited from hidden scoring and fewer catch-up mechanisms.
Yeah.
Because it has the score track, so as a result, it gives you a bunch of catch-up. And I don't know, I just feel like it makes it like a non-game. Like no matter what you do, you're all going to be very similarly located around the board. And on top of that, it doesn't even actually matter if you bust. So you're like almost incentivized to bust early on because it just, otherwise you're not getting the value you need to buy pieces and the points are going to level themselves out anyway. So
what you're saying makes me think it's just like Quacks of Splatter. Like that's the reprint. They need a cutthroat, brutal version of Quacks. One fuck up and you're out of the game. And you still have to sit there for 3 hours.
Splatter, if you're listening. That was Quacks of Quedlinburg from 2018.
Okay, Kenny. Well, I'm going to talk about Cthulhu. Is that how you say it? Is it supposed to be like a hard like H? Cthulhu? Cthulhu Death May Die from 2019. Designed by two of our favorite guys, I think. Rob Daviau and Eric Lang. And published by Cool Mini or Not. Or CMON.
I can't tell if you're memeing or not.
I feel like you like Eric Lang.
His games are a mixed bag. I'd say it's 50-50.
Okay. Well, I basically these names are names that if I see them attached to a project, I'm going to be interested to try it out, shall we say.
Same.
Okay, so they're like our favorite guys. What is Cthulhu Death May Die? Well, as the name probably implies, it's a Cthulhu game. It's basically a kind of like a dungeon crawler, except you don't really like uncover, I don't think, too many parts of the map as far as I've experienced. But you do go through levels. Basically, you're moving on a grid-based system. You have a character with RPG-like stats and things that you can upgrade. And basically, some sort of eldritch horror is threatening to emerge out of the ether. You're going to need to use all of your brawn and brain to muster up a resistance to the eldritch monster. Each campaign or micro campaign of sorts has like a different monster of the week and different strategies for defeating it. If you ever played games like Imperial Assault, Arkham Horror, even to some extent Descent, I think, then you're probably familiar with this type of game. Lots of miniatures, tons of cards, lots of tokens on the board, different things kind of always moving around. What makes this game different than any of those other ones? It has a very elegant, in my opinion, mechanism for driving the combat and the enemies. It's very simple. It's basically just like draw cards off a couple different decks in between each turn, and then each player gets an opportunity to move themselves around, take a swing at things, uncover something, and make decisions that feel impactful. It's almost like a roguelike experience in a sense, where you don't know what exactly you're going to uncover as you go through the level, but by the end of it, you're going to be like equipped, with a snake and 3 guns and a tiger for some reason, and you're throwing all of them at a giant multi-tentacled monster. This was a ton of fun. Not the kind of game I would normally seek out for myself, but I kept hearing like really, really positive things about this. So I thought I'd give it a shot, and I'm glad I did. And I imagine you feel the same way, because this was like just really fun to play.
Yeah, Tom and I are not really big fans of the delve with a gun or a sword and fight a bunch of things in an adventure kind of games. I think there are some exceptions. Like, you like Imperial Assault quite a bit. I do like Gloomhaven, although I'd say that's a little bit more puzzlier, but it's usually games that we're either neutral on or not super big fans of. But we'd heard such good things about Death May Die that we were like, we got to try this at some point. We played a full 4-player session, had a great time. If I were to summarize what this does differently than some of those other games, it really tries to strip away as much of the upkeep as possible. Yeah. Oftentimes, you'll have this thing where in between player turns or at the end of a round, the enemies will attack. And that just like hits the brakes hard for everyone at the table. It's kind of a pain because then nobody's playing the game. Whoever knows the rules is kind of like going through all these steps. And it's just kind of a nuisance before getting back to the actual action or the fun part of the game. In Death May Die, you do a little bit of that, but usually it's only in the room that your character ends in, immediately following, and then boom, it's on to the next player's turn. There's no like enemy turn. It's more of like a reaction step. And that just like feels so much nicer. It just feels like you're playing the game the whole time, which is a really big difference.
I was going to say, and to add to that, I think even the active player gets like a little more to do in enemy decision making than a lot of these other games. Imperial Assault, for example, there always has to be like one Empire player, and they just have to take over the entire Empire side of the game.
Yeah, so that's just kind of nice. The other thing that's really cool about the system is what Tom alluded to this, is just the continuous gaining of stuff. Feels like no matter what you do, you're going to be unlocking, exploring, finding new things as you progress and getting stronger and stronger. At the same time, the enemy is going to get stronger. So you feel this escalation happening, but you also feel like you're creating a build to a certain extent, and that's exciting. Mm-hmm. This is going to be no surprise to everyone who has listened to our Carl Chuddick episode, but I got a real big kick out of the tucking aspect of Cthulhu Death May Die. It's a very small thing, but when you investigate an area, you bring up a 2-sided card, and you decide if you want to tuck it on the left side or the right side of your character, and you get the benefit for the side that you tucked. And I was like, that's so cool. I love that. It's really a silly little thing, but it stood out to me, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a nice expression of those sort of crossroads moments that I think other games have. I will say, like, I had such a good time playing this that by the end, I almost got a little self-reflective, and I was like, maybe I am the kind of person that could enjoy the quiet pleasure of painting all my miniatures and, only breaking this out once every couple of months. Like, there's something to be said for, I think, having maybe just one of these types of games in your collection, and it's not something you're always tabling, but you're just going to slowly work your way through it over time. I got rid of Imperial Salt because I was just never bringing it out. But Cthulhu Death May Die had me like imagining a world in which I own it. So, and that's rare, I think, for this type of game for me. So, all right. Well, that was Cthulhu Death May Die 2019.
Tom, you and I got to play Equinox or Equinox. I still don't know which one is right. From 2021. Wait a minute, Kenny. Are you telling me you played a 2021 game and you're talking about it? Well, this is actually a remake of Colossal Arena from 1997. I actually went and checked the rules just to make sure that they were significantly similar. And yeah, they're pretty much the same game. This is a Reiner Knizia, published by Plan B. So in Equinox, the Equinox is happening, and all the creatures in the Magic Woods are coming together to have a friendly competition where one of the creatures gets eliminated each round. And at the end of the game, there's only 3 creatures remaining. Contrast that with the Colossal Arena theming, which is a bunch of creatures go into an arena and kill each other, and there's 3 left. It's very clearly still there, and it's kind of funny because they try to make it all friendly and stuff, but like we were looking at each other around the table like, these creatures are dying, right? They're not in a friendly competition. They're not like getting eliminated from the game they just played. Like, they very clearly have poofed into the ether sphere. But anyway, every round, the weakest creature, the one that has the lowest number, gets killed. And then at the end of the game, if you bid on the creatures that made it through, you're going to get points equal to how early you bid on them. If you bid on them in the first round, you get like 4 or 5 points. But if you bid on them in the second to last round, you only get like 1 point. So there's this fun push and pull of like, if I bid on this early, I'm telegraphing that I'm going for it, so somebody might try to kill it. But if I bid on this late, I'm not going to get very many points, even if it does go through. Or maybe I bid on this one that somebody else bid instead of trying to tank it so that we both share the points. And they're going to get 1 more point than me because they bid last round, but we'll scratch each other's backs and make sure this animal stays alive. It's an interesting kind of like auction-y kind of dance that's less about bidding to get something and more about bidding with the hopes that it survives and then trying to tank other things.
The first thought I had while playing this was, wouldn't this make more sense if it was horse racing? This feels like horse racing. And then that's when I found out it was a reprint of Knizia's. Well, did Knizia make the original?
Yep.
Okay. Of a game that was called Grand National Derby, a horse racing betting game. I don't know why they went away from that and stuck with this theme twice of like creatures in an arena that are battling, because like the vibes of like the creatures like attacking each other just like aren't there. It feels like a race. It looks like a race on the table, and you're placing bets. And the earlier you place your bet, the better you do.
The only thing I can think is FFG was the one that printed Colossal Arena, and it was 97 when like Magic was all the rage. And so they were like, we're not going to print another horse racing game. The other thing is he also has Winner's Circle.
Yeah.
And so Winner's Circle is another horse betting racing game. So maybe they just wanted to diversify a little bit. But yeah, I agree with you. This definitely would feel more like a horse race.
It's one of those things where it just is like the mechanics are so... The theme, I should say, has drifted so far away from the mechanics that it's hard for me to even like care about what's going on. Like I have to attach myself to what is happening mechanically as a result. That said, I was like not super impressed with this. I didn't like hate it per se, but I was just like, this is whatever. This is like a nothing game to me. Almost like what your mom was saying about Sushi Go. It's like, okay, cool.
I'm like a little bit hotter on it than you are, but I'm in a similar realm where instead of it being a nothing game, I would say I enjoyed it, but it's nowhere near some of the other Knizias that I've played.
Oh yeah, this is like D tier Knizia maybe. At some point we need to do a Knizia tier list.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, it's still very clearly his brand. Like, the rules are simple. There's a lot of depth there that emerges from those rules. But for some reason, it's not as satisfying. It kind of just feels like this is a game, you know?
Yeah. And it was funny, too, because I was saying about this with regards to the theme, that if it was still a horse racing, or even just in some other way, was like making it clear that you're trying to place bets and goofing off, I feel like I could vibe with it more.
Yeah.
Because I just wouldn't be taking it seriously. I'll be like, oh yeah, it's gambling. You know, now I'm in gambler mode. Put the sunglasses on and I don't really care what happens. I'm just spinning the wheel. What was I going to say to this? Oh, the other thought I had was, it's got this like monsters coming together to battle. Where is the Pokemon version of this? How does Splendor have a fucking Pokemon edition and this doesn't? Crazy.
Well, Splendor is sold more copies than this for sure. So I think that's probably a factor.
Yeah, that's fair.
Nintendo wants to use its IP pretty sparingly, and so...
No, they don't. They put Pokemon on fucking anything. They'll put it on Labyrinth.
Maybe let me spin it around.
Okay.
The Pokemon IP is expensive. And
fair enough.
I don't know that there's a publisher out there that looked at Equinox and was like, I'm going to make a lot of money if I make this Pokemon. But I do agree with you. There's definitely something there.
All right, get Digimon on the phone then. Sloppy seconds.
We have Pokemon at home.
Yeah. Sorry to all the Digimon fans out there. I understand it's different, okay? They're like digital monsters. It's better. The storytelling is much stronger. The anime is more significant.
We're with you. We're with you, Digimon stands. Don't add us. That was Equinox / Colossal Arena.
All right, Kenny. I'm going to talk about Everdell. And I don't think it's the first time we've talked about Everdell on the pod, but I believe it's the first time I've talked about it. This game was published in 2018. It's designed by James Wilson and published by Starling Games. I played the complete collection, which was just kind of a fun treat for me. Our friend of the pod, Taylor, owns this. And it was really fucking funny to watch her struggle to put away 3 different things that accidentally got left out of the giant box that this comes in. So first it was like the rule book didn't get put in. So she had to like lift the thing off, put the rule book in, put the big ass lid back on. Right at the end of the next game we played, there was a berry on the ground. So she had to open it all the way back up. And it was like pull like 3 trays out just to get down to the tray with the berries. It did make me reconsider whether I want the Supreme edition of Castles of Burgundy. I'll tell you that much. But that's neither here nor there. What is Everdell? Well, if you haven't played it by now, you should. So go seek it out. It's a nice little tableau builder game where you're just trying to get your animals, get them to work in their cozy little shops, and you're constantly feeling stressed out because you really want to buy stuff from a center market before the other players buy them, but there's always like 2 cards that you need in order to make something really work. And if you see the second card just sitting there face up in the market, you're like until it gets back to your turn.
Yeah, there's also a worker spot that you could really use, but somebody's just like, I'm never going to take my worker off of there. I'm just going to keep going. And you're just like, please, this makes my life so much easier.
Yeah, this is a worker placement that really puts the placement in the name here, but there's never like exactly cause for supreme frustration. There's always like something you can figure out what to do. I think we both like this game quite a bit. I haven't played it nearly as much as you, but every time I have played it, I've enjoyed it. While at the same time, I kind of like forget that it's an option. For whatever reason, this doesn't cross my mind as like a quick-ish middleweight game. And I'm not sure why. Maybe it always just ends up taking longer than I think it will.
Yeah, I don't think it's particularly quick. I think every time I play this at 4 players, it's like at least 2 hours, if not 3.
Okay, gotcha. So it probably shines at 3 just because it eliminates one person's AP from the equation.
Honestly, it's very fun at 2.
Okay. It has some vibes that are similar to, I think, some of like Uwe Rosenberg's games, interestingly enough, where you feel kind of clever for figuring out how to get like a giant pile of sticks, but then you have to figure out how to turn that into profitability. And yeah, just a lot of like fun little mechanisms and ways to score points.
Yeah, what always impresses me about Everdell, especially given its theme, is how tight and punishing it can be. When the game begins, you're just like, I'm not going to get anything done. Like you get past the first season and you're just like, there's nothing going on. I'm going to lose. And then as the game progresses, it does open up. But like, even then, like you really do have to like think about how you're going to approach things. It's not a game where you can just randomly do stuff, because then you'll just be out of the game real early and not score any points.
Yeah, by the end of the game, a ton of turns are happening. I also find it interesting that you can sort of like finish the game and literally like leave the table. I finished
we went and got burritos.
We went and got burritos while everyone else continued to take turns. And the reason I was done was because I had literally spent all of my resources and actions completing my like winter era. And it's interesting, I guess, that you can do that as a player. You know, I guess like maybe a bit of a feels bad if everyone else is taking like their sweet ass time and you're like, I'm friggin' done. But, you know.
Not to mention you could do that and win, because you left for 30
that was
minutes,
the funniest
you came
part.
back. Yeah. And they were like, you won, Tom. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, try this one out if you like cute woodland creatures, if you're a big Redwall fan, or if you're an Uwe Rosenberg fan. I feel like there's a lot of overlap, weirdly enough. It actually is starting to confuse me why Kenny likes this one and doesn't like more of Uwe's games.
What are you talking about? I like Agricola. I like Nussfjord. Just because I don't like Le
It's
Havre
just
doesn't
Le
mean I'm
Havre,
a
huh?
Uwe hater.
Okay. All right.
I feel like we've had this conversation on the cast before.
Yeah, it's true.
You've painted me as an Uwe hater, and I had to defend myself.
Well, because I think it's the problem, the disconnect here is that you're always saying like Bonanza's his best game.
Well,
which I don't even think you're wrong for that, but it comes off as conceited. It's like a contrarian take.
Oh, for sure. But like, it doesn't mean I don't like his other games.
But you don't like, okay, but a Caverna then.
Caverna's okay.
There's that. And then also Le Havre, I personally don't understand it. But you've never played the short version either, notably.
Oh, I'm sure
I'm
that'll
always
fix
saying
it.
this.
Someday you and I will play the short version and I will eat my words.
I can't wait. All right. I digress. That's Everdell from 2018.
100 games to play before you die.
All right, Kenny, this for those who are new to our podcast, this is the part of the podcast where I talk about the list of games that Kenny made up for 100 games that you should try out before you turn 100 years old. Get on it if you're 99 this year, because not a lot of time left. Game number 28 is Welcome to, full title being Welcome to Your Perfect Home, from 2018. It's designed by Benoit, Turpin, and then published by Blue Cocker Games.
Kenny, why is this on the list even though you notoriously hate roll-on rights?
Yeah, exactly.
Your next line is...
He called me out. Kenny, why the heck is this on the list when you notoriously hate roll and write games?
Yes, I'm a roll and write hater. It doesn't mean I don't think you should play a roll and write. So this is the roll and write that I put on the list. Technically, it's a flip and write, but I mean, at this point, the whole genre is just an X and write.
Like a jump and write.
Yeah, jump and write, a balance and write.
We need to do a shake and write.
Shake and write.
Somehow.
There you go.
Shake and bake and
move
write.
over. For those who are unfamiliar with what we're talking about, they're Yahtzee-likes. They're characterized by you typically having a piece of paper, a personal paper that you can write and color in or write in different parts of. And often, but not always, they're characterized by having anywhere from 1 to 100 players. You can all participate at the same time, and you all share a potential set of choices that gets usually rolled on a pair of dice. Sometimes, like in this game, you flip over cards, and those cards give you your particular choices. But then from there, this is where the game diverges for each player. In Welcome to, you each have a suburb on your piece of paper, and you can choose how you fill in that suburb. And the choices you have on each turn are 3 numbers and 3 powers associated with those numbers. It's up to you where you put those numbers / powers you pick. So the games are going to very quickly diverge. And even though you all have the same set of options the entire game, you're going to have very different looking pieces of paper as you progress. And it's a race / puzzle of trying to figure out how to get the most points and get more points than the other people playing the game. So why is this such a big genre? What is the appeal? It's a communal, low effort activity that doesn't have a lot of confrontation, and you can kind of do in between two bigger games. It's very nice feeling. I think we even mentioned these in the cozy part of our conversation.
If we didn't, it's fucked up.
Yeah. These are cozy games. Like you can play them comfortably and have a good time. And
you could almost literally be sitting like in your bed and playing these types of games.
The big appeal is also the play count. Like it's pretty easy to get everybody up to speed on this, and you can all be playing at the same time. You don't have to wait for your turns. You can play with like 10 people, or you could play with one. Like I've played roll and writes in my bed, just sitting, with the little lamp shining on my paper and going through and playing, twice as clever or something like that. They're really nice as a kind of like before I go to sleep activity. So I definitely feel like everybody should try these. I think Roll and Write and Welcome To in particular have become icons in the board gaming community. So I think it's important to have them on the list. It's a genre in and of itself that has its fans that specifically will like seek out Roll and Writes because that's what they're into. They'll even bring them to game nights and play them as kind of the main thing that they're interested in playing.
I mean, it's probably one of the biggest genres ever because like every game seemingly has the ability to be adapted into this style of game. Speaking of which, Law of Roll and Write when?
A big board game will come out, and either immediately following or a few years later, a Roll and Write version of that board game will come out. And so if you're a really big fan of that game, you'll get the Roll and Write as like a filler version or just a new way to experience the game, like the Castles of Burgundy dice game, for example. That's a Roll and Write. Roll and Writes are really nice in that they're like inexpensive to manufacture and then relatively low cost point for people to purchase. It seems like a lot easier to design, especially when you're riffing off of an existing board game.
Yeah, I think the space in some ways is almost underexplored as far as like what it could do. But maybe I just personally have not explored it myself enough. Because I feel like you in particular, you're like forgive the pun, you're rolling off of this medium for board games largely. It makes me wonder if there's just not enough people like, being very exploratory with this space. They probably are, and I'm probably just not in the right channels to find out what they're coming up with.
Yeah.
So why is Welcome To the de facto game when Dinosaur Island Roll and Write exists?
So great question. And, I know you're doing a bit because to the listeners out there, Dinosaur Island Roll and Write was like one of the most complicated games we've ever tried to learn. It was kind of insane. Welcome To is specifically here because I think it represented a turning point in this genre. It definitely wasn't the first of its kind, but it kind of popularized it in the 2018 period. And then it from there kind of blew up amongst a few others. But also, I think it's very easy to understand the appeal or the intent behind the games by playing Welcome To. It kind of gives you that immediate, I understand why this is a thing. Not to mention, it's not the easiest game, but it is an easier game to learn. It's one that you can play with the family and they'll probably be okay. They'll be asking you about the powers every turn, but they'll still understand the general intent.
I agree. It's one of the more like approachable concepts and designs. One piece of warning almost is that if you think this is a game where you get to design your dream home, it's not. It's a game where you design your dream neighborhood. However, there is another game called Floor Plan where you do actually design your dream home. But of course, the elegance of the design of your home's blueprint might not be the highest scoring way to design your home. Just word of advice.
If you design your dream home, get ready to score 0 points.
So yeah, that's Welcome To from 2018. It's a roll and write. Just give rolling and writing a try. Why not?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, Kenny, well, enough of that bullshit. Time to get into the meat and potatoes of this podcast. The part of the podcast that people tune in week to week to actually get to. They're skipping ahead, as it turns out. The first hour of the show, they're like, whatever, I don't care. I just want them to talk about the thing that they said they were going to talk about last week. And that's what we're going to talk about now. That's what we're going to do. And that is games that should get a reprint. What makes a good candidate for a reprint, Kenny?
Game is hella expensive.
Yes.
There's some games they're not printed anymore, but you can still get them pretty easily. But there are some games that just like, if you want a copy of this, I mean, there's the term Grail game, right? I think most Grail games, they're considered Grail games not just because they're sought after, but because like they're very hard to obtain and very expensive.
Yeah, expensive is a good one. I think bad, like visual design, like it's not so much that the art is shit. You can love the ugly art of the original game for all I care. I'm not personally offended by Brown, the game. However, I am offended when like a green icon refers to a brown component.
You're talking about Deus?
Yeah, bringing that one back up. Or just similar ideas where like there's just, maybe it's been so long since the game came out. There's like a color blindness problem with the original version. And they could fix that by adding symbology and other clarifications to make things easier to understand. Rules clarifications too. Maybe like the rules need a significant update that just like adds in information that wasn't available in the original. And the only way you would know how to resolve some sort of unintended side effect of the original rules is by diving deep in Board Game Geek forums. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff where there's just like a problem and they really need to just fix it.
Another one kind of related is art. The game is easy to get by. It's easy to come by maybe, and it doesn't really have like UI, UX issues, but it's just very old looking. It's got a frowny Euro dude on the cover, and it's got a map that looks like it was printed on a tea-stained paper. You and I notoriously do not care about this one. I'm just highlighting it because it is a thing that people look for reprints. But I guess maybe we can dissect that. Like, why does it not matter to us?
I mean, I think I appreciate when a game gets a facelift, but I'm not necessarily... I don't know. I guess, like, I would actually be hesitant to play a game that looks like it's frowny and dull, to be honest. So I probably am judging it by its cover a little bit, but, like, the actual playing of the game, I'm not typically, like, sad that I don't have plastic minis. I think there's an extreme on the other side of this where it's like it's so overdone that it ends up just kind of feeling like a cluster.
Well, yeah,
it's just like
because a lot of people have this feeling about Castles of Burgundy, so they did a reprint. They did a reprint of Castles of Burgundy, which, funny enough, it doesn't even have necessarily updated art as much as just really deluxeified components. So. I mean,
you're talking about the one before the like ultra deluxe Kickstarter edition, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying like between the original printing and the Kickstarter one, like.
Well, the Kickstarter one was like all new artwork, like all new added pieces and stuff. So there's like the original Castle of Burgundy from like 2011 or whatever, which just is like brown. And then there was a reprint. I want to say it was around 2018, 2020-ish, somewhere around there. Maybe a little before. That was like, it just was glossed up. Like it wasn't like a particularly huge upgrade. They just made the colors more vibrant. The pieces looked better. I think they just like made it a little sexier. And then the ultra deluxe Kickstarter edition that they just recently had, it comes with like soft bags and plastic like component upgrades. There's like trays that hold stuff like in place. Like the hexagonal tiles are made of thick ass cardboard and they fit inside of plastic trays and stuff like that. Like they went to the max with it.
Why does that not play as much of a factor for us? For the most part, like obviously we're going to prefer something that's a little bit nicer, but like I think for me, like, I almost appreciate things as artifacts from when they were made. Like for Tigris and Euphrates, like, because that's one that people bring up a lot as one they would like to see a reprint of. I think Tigris and Euphrates should get a reprint for the price reasons, because current editions of Tigris and Euphrates go from like $60 to $90, which I think is ridiculous.
You're lucky if you get it at 60.
Yeah, but like at the same time, I've never had a problem with how ugly it looks. But then there are people in our group that are just like, oh God, this game is so ugly, it could use a reprint. For me, it almost feels nice. Like it feels like it captures its time to play like that old edition of Tigris and Euphrates. I feel like I'm playing something that has transcended time almost.
So if we get a reprint, it has like all furry artwork. Are you bummed about this?
I mean, it's a Knizia. If it got a reprint, it would probably have anthropomorphic animals. There's an 80% chance.
Now it's like magical animal kingdoms vying for power.
I would probably still play my old version to the disdain of the group.
I think I would be turned off. That's like almost like the problem with reprint. We're getting like, this is tangential almost, but it's like the problem that can come about from asking for a reprint is they pick an art direction that is just fundamentally different.
Yeah.
And it almost like re-themes the whole game. I think I'm kind of with you where I don't like that.
You talked about Ethnos. We don't like the new Ethnos, but we do like the new Quacks. And those are two examples of like completely different aesthetics.
Well, I feel like Quacks, it's aesthetically completely different, but it's not a completely different concept. It's still like you're a quack magician. Whereas in Equinox, it went from being like horse racing to like magical animal fights. And so I'm saying if they did that with T&E, where they're like, it's civilization building in Babylonian times or whatever, and now it's furries, like, and the furry kingdoms of different anthropomorphic races of animals, I'm just like, what? Like it loses something for me doing that personally. I can understand if other people want the furry edition, but I very much like the idea of if you're gonna reprint something, that you try and actually maintain kind of the characteristic aesthetic, even if it's not like the visual aesthetic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. One that people really didn't like, that I actually do like, is Chinatown reprinted as Waterfall Park. For the reasons that you just said. I think people kind of felt like trying to carve out sections of a theme park didn't make any sense to them, because usually there's a sole proprietor of a theme park. Whereas in Chinatown, you're trying to establish your businesses in different parts of the city and carve out like a particular niche for your business. They felt like that was just completely missed in the retheme. Yeah.
I can tell you how they could have done Waterfall Park correctly. I got it. You ready? It should have been like competing boba tea shops. Every like boba tea shop is trying to crowd each other out in some metropolitan area.
It is kind of funny how cutthroat the boba tea shops are.
Like literally they'll build like right next to each other. It's just like, oh God, which one do I choose?
Yeah, you're onto something. Maybe we got to make the new edition. So the Waterfall Park thing, just to kind of move to another one. Another reason a game might get a reprint is because there are things that are problematic about the original one. And I don't even think Chinatown is the worst offender. Like, it's a little bit of like Orientalism, but like, I think a good example is like games that are very, very based in like colonialism or something like that. Or like we talked about this on way back in like an early episode, but like Great Western Trail, when they did a second edition reprint, they fixed, some of the Native American imagery and things like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good reason to do a reprint, because to be completely honest, I feel a little uncomfortable playing those games. They feel dated, and they make me want to engage with their mechanisms, but not want to engage with their themes. So when you do a reprint and you do it tastefully, it can help to fix some of those things.
Open it up to like a new modern audience, really. Yeah. For sure. Well, okay, all of that out of the way, what games do you think are overdue?
I mean, it's never happening, but Glory to Rome, right? For the money reasons.
See, I saw someone saying this online, and I'm like, doesn't Motainai exist? I understand they're different, though.
I mean, you and I both prefer Motainai. I'm less excited for a Glory to Rome reprint so that I can be like, oh, thank goodness I can play Glory to Rome, because we already have a proxy version anyway. It's more so that people like shut up about it. I'm just so tired about hearing about like, I mean, we're probably part of the problem.
They'll never reprint Glory to Rome. They'll never make it again, bro. It's like totally locked out in an illegal battle, man. It's like,
yeah. By the way,
it's like $300, bro. Like, I found one. Speaking of like games that are sort of like locked down on IP, a similar one is Star Wars: The Queen's Gambit.
Ooh, that's a good.
That one's like famous for basically being so entrenched in the Star Wars identity that it's like never getting out, and it's like $300 to find this game, and it looks really cool. We're really lucky that we have a friend in our group that owns it. I really want to try it out, but it's like, yeah, the fact that no one can play this game is kind of a bummer because it's apparently kind of legendary.
Yeah. Samurai. I mean, we talked about Samurai recently. More than T&E, selfishly, I want a Samurai reprint because it's really hard to find that game.
Yeah, I'd love a version of this. I was just talking about how it's like sick it could be as like all wooden style. Either like a wood and metal version would be really cool, but even short of that, even if they just basically made the tiles like, because you're drawing tiles out of a bag, like if they were the plastic Bakelite pieces or something like that, I think that would elevate the game.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Or even just like, I think there's other ways they could make like small visual and sexy improvements to this one. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that one because like it's a Knizia game. It seems like a shoe-in for a reprint. Like it's any day now they're gonna announce it. I'm like, what the heck's going on?
Yeah.
I put this one on the list because I'm not sure when the last time it was like actively being manufactured, and that's Power Grid. We played the Power Grid the card game recently, and it just got me thinking about that game in general. And I'm like, is it out? But where can we get like a new visual design?
This is one where they keep printing it. Like, I don't think it's hard to come by, but it does look outdated. I totally
it's got a
agree
frowny Euro guy on it, kind of. It's interesting because you're just saying like T&E has a very intentional time capsule like aesthetic. I think Power Grid's the same way, but I think it could be interesting to redo Power Grid with like a climate change mindset, actually, where it's like all the power is ecological. Maybe it's all like eco-friendly power sources. It would make not as much sense that you're like buying. What would you be buying? Like the wind in the sun? You know what I mean?
Buy that wind.
Yeah, but I could almost see like it getting redone with some kind of mindset, fit in line with things like Daybreak and these other things that are trying to sort of like play. Because Catan did this too. It's called like Catan New Energies or something like that. I think Power Grid could be a great candidate for exploring the idea of like, how do we transition off of fossil fuels? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
now that one's
sense.
like, that would be like an overhaul type thing. It's not as simple as a reprint, but if nothing else, I think they need to reprint the card game because I don't think that one's been around for a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while.
10 years old. It's been a while. Yeah, it's been.
One that I don't think is going to be happening, but is just wishful thinking, is if they did an updated look for Hansa Teutonica, because that game still feels fresh, but when you look at it, it's just like, and I'm talking about the deluxe version or whatever, the big box version, even like, it just makes you not want to play it. Again, we're not big on aesthetic, so we were able to get past that, but I know that there are people that will just not entertain this game because of how it looks, even though it's an amazing game. So I think it could get kind of the Sidereal Confluence treatment, where they really.
I feel like that one I'd be okay with, like it being like animal.
Yeah, sure. Slap some animals on there. I don't care. But
just make it look like Everdell, but it's Hansa Teutonica. Why not?
More than anything, it needs those double thickness boards.
Yes.
Because the little pieces sliding all over the place is just an absolute pain.
I'm with you. Oh, the one that so we found some sources online where people were sharing their own ideas, and one that I saw that stood out to me, I agree with, is Mechs versus Minions. Which sounds weird maybe coming from me because like I've never even played this game. We have a friend who owns it, thankfully. So once again, aren't we super lucky? But it's like, what the hell? This is like one of the top 100 games. And I don't think it has been in print in almost 10 years.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's wild. Like that's just an accessibility thing. It's just like, why not manufacture this game? If there's clearly still demand for it. It's a very popular game.
The fascinating thing with Mechs versus Minions is that it should have never existed to begin with. I'm pretty sure that Riot Games lost money on it because they were selling this game at a cost that was like much lower than market for games typically of this scale and quality in terms of like all the minis that came with it. So I don't know what happened there other than it being kind of a passion project to just hype up really big fans of League of Legends. And that's why I suspect it's never going to get reprinted, which is unfortunate because it is a really fun game.
It's IP locked, isn't it? Yeah. I guess what's wild to me about that is I think like 3D printing is like better and cheaper than it's ever been, right? Something happened with it recently that I think we saw that Skyrise game. We played that and each of those buildings is like its own unique model. And I feel like that type of ability to print games like that at the price point that game was selling was not there 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so League of Legends, Riot Games, get on it. Get back in it.
Yeah.
You could do it. You could probably actually make a profit this time.
A lot of people have expressed a desire for Shadows over Camelot and or Battlestar Galactica.
Oh.
Yes, we know there is a reprint of Battlestar Galactica that's not IP tied. It's called Unfathomable. So this is like FFG lost the rights to BSG and they made a Cthulhu boat-based BSG.
Where you're in a boat, but one of you's a Cthulhu.
I think one of you's a cultist.
They should.
Okay. The FFG people are like, okay, so get this. You're in a boat and one of you's a Cthulhu.
Dude, I have the best idea for a reprint of this. It's Battlestar Galactica, but it's Among Us themed. Imagine it's like the same breadth and complexity as Battlestar Galactica, but it's Among Us.
That would be such a whiplash, though, because the people who are into Among Us are looking for like a 10-minute low rules.
That's what would make it really funny to me.
Oh, it would be funny, but it would nobody would ever pick it up.
Okay, alternatively, they could make like The Thing, right?
Yeah, and there is a thing game that tried to be like this. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
They could actually just like merge it. I don't know. I do see though. It's like it's kind of locked in Battlestar's lore. As I understand it.
Yeah, it's so tied to the theme itself. It's a very evocative game, and so I think that's part of the reason that a lot of people have problems with Unfathomable. Although I will say, like, there is even one person at Wednesday nights that loves Unfathomable. So clearly, there's an audience. To go back to what I was saying, a lot of people want a reprint of Shadows over Camelot or a reprint of Battlestar Galactica. I don't think either of the games need reprints because I just think they're bad.
Okay.
This is coming from somebody that...
You think Battlestar Galactica is bad?
Yeah, this is coming from somebody who really, really enjoyed Battlestar Galactica in the past.
Uh-huh.
I just think it's a little dated nowadays.
Really? Just overly complex or something?
Overly long, overly complex, and giving you a great feeling that could be experienced by other games.
I think that's why we need Among Us, the board game.
Yeah.
Streamline it, make it pretty much the same game, but it's Among Us. I'm actually like kind of baffled right now, thinking like, how has Among Us, the card game, the board game, like not already happened?
Yeah, I am kind of surprised.
Did it miss
too.
its moment? They just couldn't strike a deal anywhere. I'm like, bring it back. It's
Yeah. Before people ask me, oh, what game do you think could, I would say Among Cultists. I think I would rather play that than Battlestar Galactica.
So it is Among Us, but it's Among Cultists.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, if you take out some of the letters in Cultists, you get us.
Perfect. I think they should reprint For Sale the board game, the card game about flipping and selling houses, but they should like triple all of the numbers on the cards to reflect the changes in the housing market. like a cardboard box should cost like $100,000 because that's what I've seen on Zillow.
Yeah. We need a Study in Emerald first edition.
Ooh.
Because everybody complains all the time about, oh, the second edition is not like the first edition. This is another one where I don't really care for my sake, but just for like not having to hear about it.
So your primary candidate for a board game getting a reprint is it'll shut annoying people up.
Yes. Which I guess they're effective, right?
Yeah.
They're
Keep
motivating me.
The squeaky wheel gets the grease, is what they always say.
We need a Tower of Babel reprint.
What's
This
that?
is a Knizia game that is impossible to get. And it needs to have some kind of mix of Knizia's rules with the publisher's rules. This is something they talk about on So Very Wrong About Games. So I can't really speak to it myself because I need a reprint of it so I can play it. But allegedly, Knizia had published and submitted his rules, and then the publisher changed a lot of the rules. And the outcome of that is two rule sets that both have problems and both have really cool things. So we need like a version 3 that combines the best of both.
We need the definitive edition.
The definitive edition, exactly.
Yeah.
Tower of Babel. Make it happen. 25th Century or Bitewing, one of you. You're usually the ones that do it.
Do you think they could successfully rebrand that one to get away from like the Bible theme?
Yes, that's another thing.
Not that it needs to necessarily, but it's just like, how do you make like the story of the Tower of Babel into something about furries? This is a real question.
I don't know, but Bitewing will figure it out. I trust them when it comes to that.
They're on the case.
That's the only thing that's stopping Bitewing from announcing a reprint.
They're like,
we
how
can't
do we
figure
make
out how
this?
to get these animals in there.
Yeah.
You know what you do? The Tower of Babel, and it's all sheep.
Okay. Yeah. It's a bunch of sheep standing on top of each other.
Anything else?
They should reprint chess. They should make chess 2.
I'm pretty sure there's like chess variants out there that literally are doing the thing you're saying, but like not as a joke.
Have you ever heard of Richard Garfield's chess variant?
You mean the random chess? I think you talked about it on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I did already. Yeah, random chess.
There's a game that came out in 2010 called Chess 2: the sequel. Chess 2 seeks to build on the greatness of the original while addressing a few problems. It's by David Serlin. This guy's an asshole.
Wait, what?
This is the guy that made Yomi.
Why is he an asshole? I don't know the lore. What's
he's just known for
spill?
being he's known for being very presumptuous.
Wait, so he's like unironically like, chess is great, but it has problems.
I don't know. I can't tell if this is irony or not. There's a new win condition to crossing the midline of the board with your king in addition to your grandpa's checkmates. This is wild.
I'm so ready.
Chess 2 the sequel. On that note.
Well, I'd say we've yapped long enough. I think that's going to do it for this week. Those are our reprint ideas. If you're a publisher, reach out to us. We want at least 1% of whatever you do, especially if you stole our idea for Tower of Babel with the sheep theme. But that's going to do it for this week. Thank you for everyone coming along with us on this journey and for continuing to listen to this podcast. Thank you especially to Michael, Tyler, Devin, and Josh of the Boise Rainbows for your awesome segue music and the 100 games. And thank you to Bonehouse for letting us use your song Rot as our opening theme. Speaking of which, you can see Bonehouse live in person at Tree Fort. They are playing this Thursday, March 27th from 8 p.m. to 8:40. They're going to be at the Neurolux in Boise. If you're in Boise or if you're planning to come out here to check out our live show on Friday, you should show up a day early and check out Bonehouse. They really are an awesome band. If you vibe with that opening theme, you'll love the rest of their stuff. Trust me. Speaking of Tree Fort, we are also going to be at Tree Fort doing a show. And that's on Friday, this Friday, March 28th, from 3 to 3:45. This is held at the Boise Contemporary Theater. So come join us, 3 p.m. We're going to have to be starting right on the dot because we have to record a tight little episode in that time. And it's going to be quick.
Yep. You don't need a wristband. It's free and all ages. You do need a wristband for the Bonehouse show. I guess we didn't mention that.
Oh, okay.
Or you pay at the door.
What is it, like $10?
I think it's 20.
Worth. Yeah, you don't need a wristband for our show. It's free and open to the public. Please join us. We'd love to see you there. And we'll be giving away a couple of things and whatnots and making it fun for people. And I suspect we'll probably do something. If you're at the show, you might even get to play some games with us after we're done.
Yep.
I'd imagine.
If you're loving the cast, share it with a friend or on Reddit or on BGG. It's the best thing you can do to help us grow. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, send us an email at shelfstablecast@gmail.com. All of this and more available in the show notes. Tom, we have a topic lined up for our live show next week.
Oh boy, what's it gonna be?
We're doing mass market replacements. You got that copy of Monopoly? Kick it out of the door and play this instead.
Yep, it's play this, not that. Just like that cookbook.
Yeah, I have no clue. See you next week.
You never seen that book? Bye.
Bye.